Hello friends! If you're new to my channel, welcome. If you are a fan or a subscriber, welcome back and thank you for the patronage. I thought I'd do something a little bit different today. I will be focusing strictly on psychology and not on religion, and I'm going to tell you about 2 experiments that every psychology student knows about. So, the first experiment that every psychology student knows about is called the Stanford Prison Experiment. Now, both of these experiments were done post-World War II, when everyone wanted to know how it was that people could be so cruel like the Nazis were. They felt so sure that people like the Nazis had to have been psychopathological in nature in order for them to do the things that they did. So, a professor at Stanford designed an experiment and built a small prison in the basement of a Stanford building. Now, obviously, this was not a real prison, but the professor, and I forget his name, made it seem like a real prison, but both the guards and the prisoners were college students who had not done anything wrong, and they were all men. Before beginning the experiment, and by the way, these were all men. Before beginning the experiment, the psychologist who ran the experiment made sure that all the men were psychologically healthy, meaning they had no hidden psychopathologies. Each man had an equal chance of being either a prisoner or a guard. And what happened is, to make it a little bit more real for the men, they borrowed some police cars and actually arrested the prisoners. Now, keep in mind, this was not a real prison. It was just a psychological experiment, and the men, both the guards and the prisoners, were free to leave the experiment at any time. So basically what happened was the quote-unquote guards got carried away and became very abusive to the quote-unquote prisoners. The girlfriend of the professor went down to see how the experiment was going. She saw what was going on and she reported it to the professor. The experiment was supposed to last 2 weeks, but ended up only lasting 6 days. Now, the professor did do the right thing by pulling the plug on the experiment, but this just goes to show you that normal people can be cruel. At about the same time, post-World War II, that the Stanford prison experiment was taking place on the West Coast, another experiment took place on the East Coast by a Dr. Milgram, and it is called the Milgram experiment. So let's get on with what it was. So Milgram was basically interested in how people responded to authority, and he was also interested in the Nazi question, but more along the lines of how people respond to authority. So keep in mind, nobody was hurt, during this experiment. So this experiment paired a quote-unquote learner with a quote-unquote teacher. Now, the learner was in on the experiment, and the teacher was the one who was being experimented upon. Now, that's important to keep in mind. So the teacher was supposed to ask the learner some questions, and every time the student got it wrong, the teacher was supposed to deliver a shock. Well, the shocks were supposed to be progressive, so they'd be like 5 millivolts higher with each progressive wrong answer. However, no shocks were delivered to the learner, and the teacher would hesitate sometimes to quote-unquote shock the learner, but Dr. Milgram said, "You have to do it, and I will take the blame for it." There was a shock at the very right of the box that was not hooked to anything that said lethal. Only some people refused to give the quote-unquote lethal shock. Most did. No actual shocks went out, but the quote-unquote teachers didn't know this, and so they thought that they had lethally shocked some of the quote-unquote students. And this led to what are referred to as institutional review boards. This is not my usual content, but I may refer to this particular episode in my usual content. So if you are new to my channel, please go check out my videos on religion. That is my usual content. If this content sounds interesting to you, please hit the like button, press the subscribe button, and if you would like to be notified when I come out with new content, please hit the bell next to the subscribe button. My Twitter, PayPal, Discord, and email links are in the description. I did not use any sources for this episode. Question everything and never be afraid. Please leave comments in the comment section. I love hearing from you. Here are a couple of videos from my library. If you have not watched them, go ahead and watch them and tell me what you think. Until next time, folks. Goodbye.